Hey guys, and welcome back to the Podcaster's Journey, episode 2. I'm super excited that you're here and thrilled to be on this journey where we document my journey and all my ups and downs through the world of podcasting so that you don't have to make them and that you can create your podcast to cut through the noise and to reach the listeners you're trying to listen to. And to reach the listeners that are trying to listen to you and need your help. Let me try saying that again. So today I'm going to be diving into the challenges that nearly stopped me from making my podcast and the journey that I've been on. And I just want to share those with you. And hopefully they can be of help for you. My moments of doubt, technical hurdles, difficulties, random stuff like that. And again, my goal is just to share these struggles with you and to encourage you and to just, help you know that you're not alone and hopefully give you tools and insights that are encouraging. So with that out of the way, let's dive in and let's talk about, in part 1, we're going to be talking about the creative struggles. So the first one is imposter syndrome. You may or may not have ever had that little voice in the back of your head when you try to do something new, or even if it's something you've been doing regularly, telling you, your voice doesn't matter. Why are you trying to talk about this? I just remember sitting here in front of this mic, sitting in front of my computer, trying to type a script, trying to type the ideas for this podcast, even in building this business to help people with their podcast, the podcast builders. And just every time I would come across a new podcasting resource or tool, I'd be like, goodness, why am I even trying to do this? Why am I trying to help other people? Because there's already so much out there to help people. Why do we need to create more noise by me being in there? And same thing with starting another podcast. Like we mentioned last week, there's over like 25,000 podcasts uploaded every day, give or take, pretty close to that. So why would we need to add another podcast being uploaded? And the thing is, guys, your message matters. What you're trying to share matters. The things that are on your heart matter. That's what I believe. And yes, there may be other people talking about it, but they don't have your personality. They don't have your thoughts. They don't have your experience. And so I just want to encourage you guys to push through that and go share your voice. Go share your message. Change the world that's around you and help the people that you can help with the knowledge and with the passion that you have. Go make it happen. So for me, trying to break through this imposter syndrome, how did I overcome that? Well, I think a big part, it was a couple things. One of them was the fact that I have a really solid community around me of people who are encouraging me and who are, that I trust to give me good feedback, to give me insights and to encourage me along this path. One being my business coach. Unbeknownst to him, I was thinking of starting a podcast, but wasn't sure I should do it. He kind of gave me the assignment as basically a business homework assignment, said, you should go start this podcast, Caleb, and make it happen. And it's been a great experience so far. I'm only 2 episodes in, but I think it's going to give me a lot more data to be able to actually help people in their podcast by being in the thick of it with you guys. Another person who's helped me a lot is my wife. Every time, again, I say every time, this is the 2nd episode, but last time I finished recording, I went down and told her. She was so supportive and so excited about it. I'm not super excited about how the first episode turned out. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't where I wanted it to be, but she was excited nonetheless. She was like, that's great. You've made progress. And we're going to touch on that again later. So I don't want to get too much into the progress. But so yeah, finding a community that you feel like can support you and that you trust to have your back and to give you positive feedback. That's a huge part of overcoming that imposter syndrome. Another part that's not fun, but I think is really important, is the fact that you got to just push through this. This is just something you're going to have to go through and that you need to accomplish and that you need to finish and that you need to go through. You can run away from it. You can try to push it away, but I think you have to face this. You have to face this and you have to figure out what the fear is that is actually trying to hold you back from that. Is it, trying to tell you, why does your voice matter? Why are you doing this? Is it because you're afraid of being made fun of? Is it because you're afraid people will laugh at you because you don't have all the information? Like, what is at the root of that? You got to get down to that. And I want to encourage you to get down to that. And I want you to face it and see what it is. See if there's any validity to it. And check that out with your community. Ask them, is there any validity to these fears that I'm having? Don't let the fears hold you back. Don't let that little voice that's generally a liar hold you back from what you're trying to accomplish and the goals and visions and dreams that are in your heart. Don't let it happen. Okay? So push through and lean into your community. Those are my tips for overcoming imposter syndrome. The next part of that, of the creative struggles, is finding your voice and your niche. I know it's really challenging for me. I'm in the thick of this right now with Podcast Builders, my company, trying to figure out what kind of podcast host to help. Who should I be focusing on? What's the profile of the people that I'm trying to reach? And what does my voice sound like? How do I carry myself in this podcast? These are questions that I'm pondering right now that I'm trying to overcome. But you know what? I don't want you guys to I don't want indecision to hold you back. I want you to just pick something here and I want you to move forward. And if it's the wrong thing, so be it. We're going to run into this theme multiple times throughout this episode. But if it's the wrong thing, don't be afraid to say it. Look, I made a mistake. That wasn't the right direction. Maybe that wasn't the right ideal client for me to be looking for in my podcast business, or maybe that wasn't the right listener for you to be trying to track down for your podcast. Use your data as you get going. I get this idea of a ship that's tied to the anchor at dock, and it's not setting sail. It's not going anywhere. So how in the world is it going to know if it's going toward its actual destination if it's literally just sitting at dock? I think a more apt analogy here would be, people crossing the sea a long time ago to come to the Americas. They didn't really know what was out here. They didn't know how far it was going to be or where. They just knew they were trying to reach something over here. But they never would have gotten closer to it had they not tried to set out and make that happen. I hope that analogy's sound. I don't actually know the history on that, if anybody had a map or knew. But I think, if I remember correctly, they just thought it was the edge of the world and there might be nothing over there. That might be incredibly uneducated as well. So please forgive me. That was an analogy off the top of my head. We can explore that together later. But anyway, trying to get back on course. You might feel stuck, constantly questioning if you're choosing the right path, and that's okay. I just want you to know and encourage you that just let your voice and your show naturally develop. Don't try to develop it all at once. Get in there and start it. Let some things fly, see how it goes, commit to a destination for sure. And commit to that before you start. Figure that out. But don't let all the details need to be figured out before you get going. For me, I'm trying to get to 100 episodes. That is my destination. And what it looks like in between here and there, I'm not totally sure of that. I know that I want to share my story with you and I want to impact your story and help you cut through the noise with your podcast with that story. But all the shapes and what my voice and my communication is going to sound like through that, how my podcast episodes are going to flow, how the intros and outros are going to be edited. I don't know all those details, and that's totally okay. And it's totally okay for you to just jump in and make it happen, okay? We talked about last time taking the first step and just getting your podcast going. It might have been an audacious goal as I'm looking back and trying to figure out like bite-sized goals for you guys. But that's in the nature or the spirit of what I'm asking you to do or what I'm encouraging you here is just to take that first step. Just make it happen. Commit to it. Okay. All right. Let's move into part 2, the technical struggles. Overcoming the overwhelm of gear and setup. This is another place that you can get paralysis by overanalysis. There's so much to do. When you get into it, you could be like, what mic do I get? Do I use an audio interface? Do I do a video podcast? Do I do just an audio podcast? How do I know what I need? What's going to be the best benefit? How am I going to reach these clients if I'm not, or these listeners if I'm not actively using the right form or medium? Guys, it really comes down to your content and it comes down to sharing your voice. So yes, all this stuff is going to play a role and help attract your ideal listeners. But at the end of the day, just remember that it's really your content and the message that you have to share. And there's many different ways that you could dive into this for different price points. So I just want to encourage you to find the right price point. And that's what I'm going to be sharing with you guys today as a benefit and a value add for you guys is going to be just a free little Excel or Google sheet that's going to have a few different price points of tools that you could use to know which tools. What kind of microphone? We could get a kind of the standard Shure SM7B microphone for $400 and get all set up that way. Or we could go something as simple as using your iPhone or your Android phone and just using the microphone on that, holding it right to your mouth, positioning it well, not moving it around. You can get some great audio just out of that. So don't let that hold you back. What I want to encourage you to do is find somebody that you trust and get a list from them of gear that would be good. Don't break the bank. If you have a budget, great. Yeah, go buy some gear that you think is going to work in the long run for your show. Guys, I get it. I'm a very efficient person. I don't like wasting money. I don't like wasting my time. I try to set up all my errands, so I'm running all my errands at the same time and hitting them all in town. And sometimes to my detriment, honestly. Like I'm trying to be too efficient, and I've cut out efficiency because I'm trying to be efficient. So I get it. If you want to set up your podcast and you want to make sure you have the gear, the right gear, so that you don't have to buy anything ever again. But if it's holding you back from starting your podcast, I want to encourage you, don't do that. Like, get some gear that'll get you by, start sharing your content, and then level up your gear when it makes sense. That's okay. We can always resell our microphones later or upgrade, save up for the next microphone and upgrade when the time is right. So don't let that get you hung up, okay? I want to just encourage you guys to keep moving forward, okay? I just want to reassure you guys before we move on from this one that basic gear can get you some really great results if you know what you're doing with it. So just get some gear and get to work, okay? There was something else I was going to say with that I didn't have in my notes, but as I read through them, was there. It's a bummer. That's the thing about creating content. You're not always going to capture everything that you want to say, and that's okay. The next one in the technical struggles is learning to edit and produce your show. So it can be quite a thing, man, to dive into all the audio editing and the recording and learning all the tips for all that and everything. If that is a struggle for you and your budget permits, find somebody to take it over for you. If it's not, I don't have the resource right now, but in the future, I hope to have a little course that you can take and some group work that we can work through that kind of stuff together. Right now, I don't have that, but I would encourage you to find somebody who can help you get to the bottom of your editing, because it is a bit of work and a bit of a learning curve to get in there and do that. But I just want to remind you that each time you get in there, each time you make a cut, each time you change the EQ curve, and listen to it and get it a little closer, work with your compressor. Each time you master your audio to a professional quality level and get it leveled up to be a consistent volume level, you're getting better. And it's in your journey to becoming a better podcaster. If you can, when you're editing, batch your tasks. When you're writing your scripts, try to do them all at the same time. Look for simple softwares that you can use. If you have a Mac, use GarageBand. It's super simple. There's tons of tutorials on YouTube on how to use GarageBand, and it's going to be, you can get what you need out of that. You can make it sound good. And I just want to remind you guys that every mistake is just a part of the journey, and it's part of the learning process. As I was practicing and reading through the script, I had the idea and the analogy of this being like your internship. I think a lot of times when we start a new venture or we start specifically maybe something that we want to generate money with, we want to be at the proverbial finish line with it. We want to be at a place where everything's great, so to speak, and we think, for us as podcasters, we're at the finish line where we have several thousand downloads or maybe hundreds of downloads every week on our podcast, and there's an audience that just really enjoys listening to all of us. But the reality of it is, we're not there yet, and that's okay. Right now, we're where we're at, and we're starting there, and maybe someday that'll happen. But just think about it as being in your internship, and you're learning right now. You're not a master. You're not an expert of your craft. You're learning, and you're getting better. Someday you'll be a master. Someday you'll be an expert. But right now you're learning, and that's okay. That goes for editing. That goes for writing your script. It goes for developing your voice and your niche. It goes for all these things we're talking about. Give yourself space and time. It's okay. Last one is mindset shifts. And I think we've kind of already gone through a lot of this, but the first one is just to embrace perfectionism. Okay? Sorry, embrace imperfectionism. As I said that, I was like, wow, I think something's wrong with that. So I want you guys to change your mindset, and we're going to think that perfection is not the goal in producing any of these shows, whether it's our voice, our niche, our gear, our editing skills. So perfection is not the goal. And I want you to replace that with progress. Progress is the goal. So we're changing the P word, perfection, to the word that starts with the letter P, progress. I want you to think about the word progress. That's what we're going for. And I have to remind myself of this all the time. The mantra that I'm a perfectionist by nature, and I get bogged down so much, you guys. But I have, for the last couple of years, been really trying to live by the mantra of done is better than perfect. Just get it done, get it out there, use it as practice, check your metrics that you're measuring by, make a little bit of progress the next week, and just keep moving that thing forward. Don't get bogged down. Keep it going, okay? No one's an expert, no one expects all of us to be flawless. We're all humans, and the sooner we can move away from this kind of social media ideology or white picket fence ideology that everything has to be perfect all the time, the better off we're going to be. Embrace the mistakes, embrace progress, not perfection. Showing up consistently is what counts, you guys. For me, the goal is not to execute 100 perfect podcast episodes. The goal for me is to progress and just do 100 episodes. I'm not throwing the baby out with the bathwater when I say don't embrace perfection and just slopping this together and trying to get to 100 for the sake of getting to 100. I'm not saying that. I'm saying do your work, but let the ums, let those stutters that are coming out that just came out of my mouth, let all those imperfections go. You're going to get naturally better, and just embrace it. Embrace the progress. And the last one before we wrap up is celebrate your small wins. My business coach talks about it a lot, measuring, and I think he got it from a book. I don't have the book off the top of my mind, but it's measuring the gap in the gain. So I want you guys to measure the gap, where you've been and where you've come from to where you are now. It's really easy for us to get caught up with the proverbial finish line again, where we think we want to be and where we're trying to get to. It's a carrot out in front of us, and it's just around the corner, and it's always going to be just around the corner. So it can be really, really detrimental to us to measure our where we're trying to get to, instead of checking out how much we've already accomplished and measuring that distance from where we've been to where we are. Celebrate all the small wins along the way. Every time you have a small win, get with your community, celebrate them. Celebrate coming up with your podcast idea. Celebrate getting your artwork finished for the thumbnail of your podcast. Celebrate finishing the script for your first podcast. Celebrate setting up your system for recording regularly for your podcast. Celebrate actually recording your first podcast. Celebrate publishing your first podcast. Celebrate one listen on your podcast, even if that's the only one you get. Celebrate everything, all those small wins. They all add up to big results over time. We all want to think that there's this big photo finish. There's a big overnight success story. And we're all really attracted to that. And probably because of our culture of instant gratification. But the reality of it is, guys, there is no such thing. In life, you've just got to do work. That's all there is to it. And all those days of little bits of work add up to create this masterpiece of life that we get to take away. And so I just want to encourage you guys to go and put in the work and let these, and celebrate your wins, and let these wins build up. And one day you're going to just wake up and you're going to realize, wow, I've done a lot of work. Wow, I've celebrated a lot of wins. And wow, I'm kind of where I've imagined myself to be in this proverbial finish line. You're going to be so much closer to that. But focus on the wins and focus on the way what you've already accomplished. Don't focus in the future. Anyway, let those add up to big results over time. So to recap, the main challenges that I've faced with imposter syndrome, finding my voice and my niche, your gear and your editing, embracing these mindsets. I think really the key takeaway today is going to be embracing these mindsets and not worrying about everything being perfect. I think that kind of cuts away all of these struggles and all these things that nearly held me back from starting this show and moving forward with it. And I know holds a lot of other people back. I know I'm not alone in that. And I don't want you to feel alone in that. And I want you to achieve your dreams and your goals. So don't let those hold you back. Launching your podcast isn't about avoiding failure. I don't think anything really in life is. I mean, there's certain things where failure sure has a higher cost to it, but podcasting is not one of them. If you put out a bomb episode, who cares? Take the metrics, learn from it, and keep moving, guys. Every struggle you face is shaping your tomorrow, and how you react to it, how you move through that struggle is writing your story. Okay, I just want you to choose the path that keeps putting you towards your goals, that keeps helping you celebrate a little win every day. So today, your challenge for today, I want to challenge you to think about one area where you feel stuck. And I want you to, what's one step, no matter how small, that you can take today to move forward? That's your challenge for today. And what I want you to do is get onto the school. There's going to be a link down in the show notes. Get onto my free school community, and I want you to tell me about your one small step that you're taking. It doesn't have to be a perfect step. It doesn't have to be an amazing step. It just has to be your step. I want you to take one small step today so that you can become the podcaster that you're trying to become. Reach the people you're trying to reach, okay? So again, your challenge is to get on the school platform and tell me your one small step. You don't have to do that part. I would love to be a part of your community, encouraging you and cutting down the imposter's voice in your mind. If you want that encouragement, get on the free school community. Tell me what that one step is. If you don't want to be in the community, that's fine. But please, by all means, take inventory of yourself and figure out what one small step is that you can take today to move you towards your goal, and do it. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be crazy. It could be really small. Just pick that one goal and do it, okay? I'd love to hear about your steps. Share them, as I've already talked about. Remember, you're the hero of your podcasting journey. I'm just here to try to provide some guidance along your path. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you next week for another episode of The Podcaster's Journey. Until then, happy podcasting.